So as I said, we are almost at the end of the series on the Beatitudes. As we were reading it, you would have noted, of course, that the last two sections are both about persecution. And we're looking at the first of those sections today. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, I wonder if you noticed as we read the connection between this beatitude and two of the previous ones. So the first beatitude is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The promise is the same as the first. And then, of course, it's the fourth beatitude where it says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. So there's that connection between those two previous beatitudes. So in a sense we can see that we've come full circle with this one. The Beatitudes begins with this blessing, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and it ends with the same blessing. And I wonder, is it in some way more true of this beatitude than it is of the first? Certainly, if we think of the Beatitudes as a series that we must all work our way through, perhaps the first Beatitude in making this promise speaks of a potential, whereas this one might speak of its reality, its existence in our lives and practice. We talked also about righteousness with the fourth beatitude, and this was back in June. We talked about what righteousness is, and one of the things that I said then was that righteousness is living in accordance with divine order, or living the life and law of love. But if you go to your Bible and you look at a concordance and you look for the word righteousness, you find a couple of things as you read through all the passages that it suggests. You find that righteousness needs to be practiced without fear or favour, as they say. Righteousness is practiced without being swayed by external concerns or circumstances. So, for example, there's a passage in the law, it talks about judging between someone who is poor and someone who is rich, that you don't favour the person who is poor simply because they are poor. Righteousness must be applied equally in all circumstances. And righteousness also needs to be applied even when we have the opportunity and perhaps even the justification to do the opposite. Let me say that again. Righteousness needs to be applied even when we have the opportunity and perhaps also the justification to do the opposite. We're so good, aren't we, at thinking about all the ways that I'm right in doing what I'm doing. Our mind is so very good at giving us excuses and reasons and reasonings for the way that I act and behave. And yet we are called to act righteously and justly in every situation. There's a passage, a couple of chapters in the first book of Samuel, where David comes across Saul. Saul is asleep and David has every opportunity to finish him off. And he doesn't do it. He makes the point to Saul that I have discovered you in a state of weakness, in a moment of unconsciousness, and I could have killed you. Saul acknowledges the fact that David has done something. He has practiced righteousness when Saul himself would not have. And the thing is, it happens twice. So it's chapter 24, and then it happens again in chapter 26. David again has the same opportunity to finish off Saul, and he does not take that opportunity because he is practicing righteousness. knowing all the while that if the tables were turned, he would be dead. We are to practice righteousness despite having the opportunity and perhaps even the justification of doing otherwise. Now, I'm going to show you the interlinear translation of this beatitude because I find it quite interesting. So this is accessible on the internet. You'll find the Greek text in black. The red text obviously is the English. Strong's numbers right at the top and various other information you can find there. All clickable if you want to go exploring the Greek text. But look at the way the English is expressed here. Blessed are those having been persecuted on account of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. So, we live a life, when we live a life of loving righteousness, then no outside influence or challenge has any lasting effect upon us or our actions. We simply do what is right, that is righteousness. But notice the tense that is used here for this word persecuted. Blessed are those having been persecuted. And that to me speaks of the wisdom of experience. This is a state that is only attained by means of the difficulties and challenges we have faced. It's only through this path of trial, temptation, spiritual combat that we reach this final state. So if we are at this point in our spiritual journey through the Beatitudes, it will not have been easy. We may well have faced opposition from others, but I'm going to tell you with absolute certainty that we will have faced opposition from within ourselves. Because change is never easy. And we so easily justify our own actions. We so easily excuse ourselves. And those are the things that persecute us for righteousness' sake. The word persecuted actually means to put to flight. And that had me in mind of a passage from the teachings that I just wanted to share with you to finish off. So this is from Heavenly Secrets. The situation with regard to judgment from truth is this. The Lord never judges anyone except from good. For his will is to lift all men, however many these may be, up to heaven. Indeed, if it were possible, up to himself. For the Lord is mercy itself and good itself. And mercy itself and good itself cannot possibly condemn anyone. It is man who, in rejecting good, condemns himself. As a person has habitually fled from good during his lifetime, so in the next life he flees from it, and therefore from heaven and the Lord. For the Lord cannot be present except within good. So I just want you to note the way that that's expressed. The idea of fleeing from the Lord, fleeing from good. So let me tell you one thing with absolute certainty. In your spiritual life, you will flee. You will flee from something and you will flee towards something else. The only question is, what are you fleeing from? Are you fleeing from evil towards good, or are you fleeing from good towards evil? And this is what I think we have to ask ourselves consistently. if we are to be described as it is in this beatitude.